and welcome to this short video on how to use Excel for admin use. This video is video number 5 in this series of Excel videos, and today, or in this video, we are going to focus on the COUNTIF form, but we're also going to use the if form for counting as well. We'll start by the if form. In these columns right here, I want to count if this column says identified, in process, or completed. To do that, and this is for future purposes. This is because in later videos, I want to use a subtotal form, and I want to be able to use autofilters and have these tools help me do some counting, some statistics based on my filters. And to do that, I need a simple counting here. So I need this cell to say 1 if this cell right next to it in column E, the status is identified. Now we need this one to say 1 if the status is in process, and so on. So let's start by using the if form. We click on the insert function icon up here, and then we simply select the if, click OK. And the first thing I'm going to look at is my logical test. Well, what is my logical test? First, I want to look at this cell right here, and I will lock the column, but I will not lock the row because it's I need to be able to copy it down in the other rows, and then this needs to follow. The next thing I'm going to do is to say this cell needs to equal, and then I'll go to my drop-down list because it needs to equal this category, the status here called identified. And identified needs to be locked, since I don't want it to change when I start copying. So the row and the column needs to be locked. Then I go back here. And if this is true, then what should happen? Well, then you should simply just count 1. And if it's false, well, then nothing should happen. I click OK. As you can see, nothing is in here. And that's because I asked it to see if this cell said identified. It doesn't. It says completed, so it's supposed to be blank. If I remove these just as a tryout, you'll see it says identified here, and it says 1. So let's just go back. Oh, I can see I put 2019, not 2018 here, so I'll just correct this since today we're in 2018. So having something started, that's not today, that's not really, okay, like that. Okay, let's continue over here. The next thing is I'll copy it. And now you can see nothing happens here either, and that's because I locked the cell and the row on where to look. So it still looks if this says identified, and it doesn't. So I can go in here to my form, and then I can correct up here. Simply just change where it needs to look. I do that by marking, then click on drop down list and click on in process. And again, I need to lock it so it doesn't change when I start copying it. Here, the rest, if it's true, still needs to be 1. If it's false, still nothing needs to happen. So I don't change those. Click OK. Now, again, it doesn't say anything. It's not supposed to, because column E, row 6 says completed. But if I delete this one right here, you'll see now it says in process, and it counts 1 here. So it actually works. Let's just get this one back. And then go over here. We noticed that in our drop-down sheet here, identified was in row 5, in process in row 6, and completed in row 7, all of them in column D. So if I go back here and look here, it has column D, yeah, but it says row 5, it's supposed to be row 7. Change to 7, hit enter, and boom, it works. Now I simply just mark them and drag them, so it's copied all the way down. And then I want it to be centered as well, like this. Now you can see this, we have the counting in here. For the purpose of what we're doing next, just to see if it works, I'll put in another task. We identify a new task under the category marketing. And this one would be Peter, since we haven't had him yet. And this one would be, when should it be? Let's just say it was identified on December 1st. and it was completed on December 6, 2018. Okay, so the next thing that I want to do is to have some kind of statistics up here. These statistics are not related to these three columns. They're related to the status column. Um, and I need some headlines for them. The headlines needs to be the same as in the status bar. So I'll just put equals to and then go to my drop down list and click on identified and hit enter. And then I'll do the same here. I can't just copy because in the drop down list they go downwards. Here they go sidewards. So I need to once again hit equal like this, enter, equals, drop down list, click on completed and enter. I would like these to be in the same format as this, as my date over there, and then I would like it to be centered. Then here, where I have my numbers, I need a tile for the row because I'm going to have more statistics than the one that I'm creating now. So later on, we'll be doing more the subtotal statistic as well, where we put in filters. But I can't really put it in this cell because as we created earlier, we create these three columns to collapse. So I need to put it here instead. And what I'll call this is sum total. And I will ask this cell to be, first of all, I should give it some coloring and then be aligned to the right. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stand in this cell here. And now I'm going to ask this cell to count how many in this cell is or says or how many cells in this column on the status says identified. And the form I'm going to use for that is COUNTIF. So I go up here, my forms, click on my forms icon, and I choose the COUNTIF form. The first thing I do here is to put the range where I'm going to look for cells saying identified. I do that simply just by marking up, and I go back here. I will, since I'll be copying this as well, I'll be copying it sidewards. Then I need to lock the column. I also want to make sure that in case I later on want to copy it downwards, it still starts in row number 6. And it needs to continue ending in column E as well. But I'll not lock row 19 because I want to be able to put in more rows if need be. So this is the range. This is where I'm going to look. And you can see over here that it's actually listing all the content of this column or within the range. The next thing I'm going to look at is the criteria. What is it that it needs to be looking for? Well, here I'll go to my drop-down list and I'll click on identified. It needs to be looking at identified, and it needs to be looking only at identified. So I'll lock row and column. Okay. Now you can see here that what it finds here in the criteria cell is the word identified. That's what it's looking for up here. It appears one time. So I click OK. Then I'll copy it to the side. And you remember, and I'll even copy it over here. You remember that we put identified and we locked it. And since here we're copying sidewards, not downwards, it doesn't change. It continues being in the same row, and in the drop down it goes downwards, so we can't just unlock the row and then all of a sudden it appears. We need to change it to row 6 and to row 7 as we remember from earlier. So let's just quickly do that like this. And now you see that it says 2 up here. And that's because down here, if we just open it, expand these, you can see that there is 2 that's completed, so it fits to up here. There's 1 that's in process, fits. And there's 1 that's identified, so it fits. And in case I change here, I just delete this one. Now there's 2 in process. You can see that it changes up here as well. So my form works as it's supposed to. Just for fun, I want to make these centered as well. It looks a little bit nicer, I think. So this was it for this video on how to use the COUNTIF form. Um, I hope this helps you on your Excel work. So back to work on your Excel. Have a good day and enjoy.